There being a quorum present, I call this meeting of the Margate City Planning Board to order. Please stand for the flag salute. That one. Attention salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, please. This meeting is being held in accordance with due public notice thereof and pursuant to the New Jersey State Sunshine Law. Notice of this meeting was advertised in the press, and a copy of same has been posted on the bulletin board in the municipal building. All applicants are hereby advised that should you receive board approval tonight, you must come forward and sign a form which informs you regarding the timing of receiving building permits and mercantile licenses. At the end of your case tonight, please see the board administrator to sign the two information sheets. Do I hear a motion to approve the minutes of the October 31st, 2013 minutes?
Make that. I'll second.
All in favor? Opposed? Motion passes. I'd like to hear a motion for the approval of resolutions and decisions number 53, 2013, NJ08402 LLC, Frederick J. Amendolia.
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor? Opposed? Motion passes. The order has been changed a little bit. The first case will be the same. The second case will be Sheldon Mittman Trust. The third case will be Madeline Spector, and the fourth case will be Robert D.O. Marquez. Number 11, Annette Cohen, will not be heard tonight.
Mr. Patterson, Chris Bailison, with respect to the Spector matter.
Which one, Spector? Okay.
We've read Mr. Rubin's report. We've spoken with Mr. Galantino. In light of in light of some of the city's concerns with respect to the relief being requested in that application, we're going to withdraw that application this evening. We're going to attempt to redesign the renovation, hopefully to comply, hopefully so we can bring it into compliance with FEMA.
Okay. First case is Jeffrey Calliser, 109 North Monroe Avenue, Block 330, Lot 401, in the MF District to grant C variance for lot size, height, distance between principal structures, bay windows in smaller side yard, and possibly others. Taxes are current and proof of advertising and notifying is satisfied. Mr. Rubin.
Before I start, is Mr. Calliser here? Okay. Roger Rubin.
Swear the testimony about this matter will be
I do. The subject property is vacant land upon which a flood-damaged structure was recently demolished. The land is 37.5 feet wide by 125 feet deep for a total area of 4,687 square feet. Per the Peter Weiss architect plans submitted as part of the application, the applicant wishes to construct thereon a two-story, single-family home with 3 bedrooms and 3 parking spaces at ground level, 1 under the house and 2 outside on a side-by-side driveway. The proposed house, which has front and rear decks, tops off at 28 feet 4 inches above elevation 11, 1988 datum, although the first floor is set at elevation 16.4 to allow for parking underneath. This is all perfectly legal, if not appropriate, in a part of town that floods significantly. Variance is required in comments. Lot width, 40 feet required, 37.5 feet by 125. Clearly, there is an opportunity to enlarge this lot. There is no opportunity to enlarge this lot without reducing others to nonconformity. The board should note that the minimum lot area for a single-family lot is 2,500 square feet, so this lot is a bit narrow, but almost twice the area required for a house. Actually, the area of land could bear a duplex, as only 3,200 square feet is required for same, and this is permitted in the district. Second, distance between proposed structure and principal structure of an adjoining lot. 10 feet is required. As per the house to the right, it is 9 feet 5.5 inches, 9 feet 3 inches on the applicant's side, and 2.5 inches on the right neighbor's side. This 6-inch deficiency may be considered de minimis, especially considering there are no windows on the neighbor's left wall to be impacted by the small deficiency. Consider also that required side setbacks to the property line are only 5 feet compared to 9 feet 3 inches proposed, and combined side setbacks are 13.9 as compared to 18.5 feet provided, a significant gift of open space. Front landscape area is 60% required versus 37% per my calculation. The applicant should address this as to whether there are alternative arrangements that would eliminate or minimize this variance. Such alternatives might include grass strips, properly irrigated in the driveways, or additional plantings which the board should discuss. And finally, the building aesthetics as well as flood-proof characteristics are a valid consideration for the board's decision. Mr. Callison?
Callister?
Spell your last name, please.
Kaliser.
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear the testimony about this matter will be
Okay. Basically, the letter, I proposed to build a single-family home. There was a single-family home there before. It was destroyed by Sandy. I want to build a new single-family home, elevated to meet the flood requirements. And it's as simple as that. Everything else, I think, is pretty much in the letter.
Is this your home?
Yes.
It was your home and it will be your home?
It was my home before, will be my home now.
Has I see Pete Weiss is here.
Yes.
Have you and he discussed the comments about the front landscaping? And do you or he have any responses?
Well, we have, and you want to...
Just state your name for the record.
Peter Weiss?
Raise your right hand. Do you swear the testimony about this
Yes, I do. The version I have here, I did...
Take it with you.
After this was submitted, I made some modifications to the site plan. I eliminated a walkway here. I made the driveway a little narrower. So in this scenario, the front yard landscaping is 44%, which is a little short of what's required. I think that's compensated for by partly just the gross amount of landscaping on the lot is far exceeds what's required. And our front setback is 6 foot greater than required. So we're going to have more landscaping in front of the building, even though it's not technically front yard because it's, we're further back, but we're going to have extra landscaping in front only by virtue of the fact of having the building set back an extra 6 feet. So,
You went from 37 to what?
44.
44?
And the total lot landscaping is actually 44% by coincidence, as opposed to 35% required,
Yes.
right? Okay.
Anything else? Anything else? Does the board have any questions?
There's a small wall in the back of the lot that separates you and the condos behind you. Are you going to take that in consideration when you do the work?
I'm sorry?
There's a retaining wall between you and the condos in back of you. Is that, and the survey clearly shows that it's probably your property.
I'll probably leave it there. I don't see any reason to take it out.
It's pretty bad. It's in bad condition. It's in bad condition,
Is it?
yes.
I didn't look at it.
And it's retaining a lot of ground from the neighboring property onto your property.
Sorry, say that again.
It's retaining the land onto, you're lower than they are, so I don't know if we have to address that here.
Yeah, well, I mean, we can look at it and see what kind of shape it's in, and if it has to be repaired, repair it. But I thought it was in good shape. It looked pretty solid to me. You know, I figured we'd just leave it and put a fence around it.
Would you say that again? It's holding the neighbor's land from coming onto his land?
Yeah, there's a fence there. There's a fence there. It's separating the condos and back on his property. It looked like it was theirs, but now that I see the survey, it's his. So I just figured we'd let him know. Once he gets the permit, he probably won't even take into consideration. Is this something the board needs to address now while we're doing the overall project?
Well, how would you address it as a condition of approval, Jim? Is it it's something that's covered by your property maintenance ordinance? Or is it
No.
something else?
Well, I mean, part of this is part of the site plan, wouldn't it? I mean, theoretically.
Well, the board could fashion a condition that makes it he would have to replace it at your discretion if you deem it to be required.
Okay,
If you want to,
that's fair.
would that be okay with you?
Yep.
Okay.
Would you accept that?
Have to repair? I didn't get the...
If the building
Roger
inspector determines that, in his opinion, it's not satisfactory to hold up the land of the neighbor in the back, you would have to replace it. Okay.
Anyone else on the board? Is there anyone here from the public that would like to comment? Public portion is closed. Hear a motion? With the conditions?
The two conditions are the one we just talked about, and 8 sets of revised plans showing the 44% front landscaping plan has changed. Okay.
I'll second.
Brenda, second.
Bill Gotchall?
Yeah, I'm going to approve the application. I put the small...
Get the mic on, Bill.
Oh, sorry. I think the small amount of space he's asking for in the non-conformity of the lot to begin with is only 6 inches, so therefore I approve the application.
I think the generous side yards that they're proposing and the changes for the landscaping that the architect mentioned are both very favorable. And I think one extra parking space in this location is certainly going to be more worthwhile overall to the community than a little more landscaping. I vote yes.
Jim Galantino?
He took an old structure that we had red stickered actually after the storm that was substantially damaged, and is building a new structure, and it conforms to the flood requirements. I approve.
Commissioner Colby?
I also approve the application. There's a generous side yard, and the offer to provide more landscaping in the front makes it favorable to me, so I approve.
Board members.
As with the rest of the board members, I approve the application.
I agree with everyone on the board here, and I approve the application.
I approve, and I agree with the board.
Rich Patterson?
I approve. I feel that it's a good thing that someone can keep the house or keep the same location for their home and improve the neighborhood at the same time. He's worked with the board to meet our concerns, so I think it's a good application, so I approve. Could you come up here and sign some papers? Next case is Sheldon Mittman Trust, 308 North Vendome Avenue, Block 523. Lot,
Mr., will you come second, please?
I move, Mr. Cal. This is good. This is fun.
Craig Palmisano will be recusing himself, lives within the 200 feet of the subject property. Sheldon Mittman Trust, 308 North Vendome Avenue, Block 523, Lot 14, in the S40 district, to grant a C variance for side setback and possibly building coverage. Taxes are current and proof of advertising and notifying is satisfied. Mr. Rubin?
Roger Rubin. I do. The subject property is an existing flood-damaged, one-story, single-family home on a lot of 47.5 by 80, 3,800 square feet. Presently, the lot to the right is vacant, a house having recently been demolished. The owner proposes to elevate the structure 4 feet to the required flood elevation and may do so in its present configuration by virtue of Ordinance 2013-17, which exempts houses so elevated from having to get variances for nonconformities. The required elevation is 11 feet, 1988 datum, and the proposed first floor of the elevated structure would be 11.13 feet, with it remaining a one-story house, topping off at 19 feet to the peak of the roof, compared to a permitted 28 feet. The reason for the appearance before the board is a screened porch at the front right of the house, which, upon lifting, the owners wish to enclose as a den. As the screened wall becomes a solid wall, and as the flat roof is to be built up to an A roof, this change would need to meet setbacks, and it does not. Also, enclosed living space counts for building coverage, whereas porches do not. Hence, the following variances. First, side setback, 5 feet is required, versus 3.57 feet to the new den wall, which replaces the old screen porch screen wall. 2, side setbacks combined, 17.6 feet required versus 11.08, with reference only to the new den wall. 3, building coverage, 36% permitted and existing. It will be 41% because the new den replacing the screen porch now counts for coverage. Comments. If the house were elevated with retention of the screened porch instead of closing it in and re-roofing it, the impact on any future house to the right in terms of mass, etc., would be virtually identical. There may also be less noise and privacy issues by an enclosed den than an open screen porch at this location. The 1.5 foot right side variance is compensated for by the low profile of the house, 9 feet lower than permitted after it's raised, and adequate lot landscape area. These factors also temper the building coverage variance. Allowing this set of variances maintains a modest house and precludes another demolition for a much larger house. The house is clearly more livable with an additional family space, such as the proposed den. The front setback of 19 feet 7 inches and the rear of 16 feet 10 inches are additional compensations for the lot coverage variance. Both of these exceed the minimum requirement. Any future house on the lot to the right will not be impaired by the minimum distance between houses restriction, as the rest of the subject house is already at the 3.5 foot setback location. They will probably put a driveway on the left side. Finally, one more house on a badly impacted street will become flood compliant to the benefit of the owner and the city. No conditions are suggested at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Patterson. Members of the board, my name is Chris Balinson. I represent the Mittman Trust with respect to their application with 308 North Vendome Avenue, Lot 14, Block 523. It's a very straightforward application. Roger has outlined it nicely. It's a one-story rancher the Mittmans are raising to comply with the new FEMA base flood elevation. That necessitates combined side yard setback variances, a right side yard setback variance, and a very minor coverage variance. The reason we are here for that application is because they are converting what is now a screen porch on the right front corner of the house into livable space. Pete is here if anybody has any questions with respect to what's taking place, but I can't really see it as that well as Margate's flood hazard ordinance.
Chris, I think that some of the board members went out to look. They didn't actually see a screened porch. What happened to those walls? I know it was there. I'm familiar with the house.
In anticipation of having the house done for the summer, the screen porch was removed. I live three houses away. The screen porch was just removed last week in anticipation of coming here this evening and hopefully getting started on Monday if everything goes as planned. I mean, it's a tough block. That block was hit hard. I mean, there's I think 3 empty lots right now. There's a house that's already been lifted. The Chalostri. It's one of the tougher hit blocks in town.
Chris,
I was going to say aside from Lancaster Avenue, but yeah, it's
hey, Chris, out of the 10 houses down there, how many have been raised so far? Got to be 60.
2 have been replaced. There are 2 have been 1, 2, 3. Including this one, and there's 2 empty lots, so 5.
Right.
Yeah. That's it. I mean, Pete's here if anybody has any questions, but the footprint doesn't change, nothing changes. It's
Board have any questions? You want to take, go ahead.
The portion behind the screen porch has also been demolished, isn't it?
that was at grade as well, and that was like storage back there. That's going to come up as well.
It says a bathroom, though. It's
But that wasn't closed space.
There was plumbing back there, but it was at grade at the same level.
okay. Yeah, I thought it. So it's this whole piece is missing on the side. Okay. But that'll be replaced, and then the screen porch will be put in.
You're right. There was access to the rear portion from the house, but it was at the level of the side.
Anyone else? Is anyone here from the public that would like to comment? Public portion is closed. I'll give the board a minute to look at the picture. Any other questions or comments from the board? Hear a motion, please? Jim?
I'll make a motion.
No conditions.
Bill Gotchall? Glenn Kozlowski?
I'm just so pleased to see a one-story house remain a one-story house. And that's enough for me. I vote yes.
Jim Valentino?
What's your microphone not working? I commend Chris Ballinson and the Mittmans for a very nice application. It was a lot of work down there trying to get a lot of those homes raised. I know that the FEMA was really tight with the bucks trying to get those homes with grants. But it's good to see that the Mittmans are elevating and not replacing. I vote yes.
Commissioner Talby?
I also vote yes for the same reasons that Jim Galantino did. Thank you.
I approve the application. I don't see any detriment to the neighborhood, and I'm happy that it is a flood-compliant property.
I also approve the application due to they're not doing anything crazy. It's just going to be the same rancher that's there, just up a little bit. So I do approve.
I also agree with the application, and I congratulate the applicants being a little familiar with the area.
Desmond?
I also vote in favor of the application for all the reasons previously stated.
I also approve the application. It's good to see that whole neighborhood is being restored and protected from future storms. Next case is Robert and Deborah Stern, 410 North Nassau Avenue, Block 515, Lot 16, in the S40 district to grant a C variance. Taxes are current and proof of advertising and notifying is satisfied. Mr. Rubin.
Mr. Chair, I have to recuse myself. I'm also within that 200.
Commissioner Todd will be recusing yourself. And welcome back, Mr. Palmisano.
Roger Rubin. Yes, I do. The subject property is an existing two-story home on a canal front lot, 62.5 feet wide by 100 feet deep, of which about 70 feet is uplands, for an upland area of 4,400 square feet. Per the submitted plans by Arthur W. Ponzio Associates, the applicants wish to replace an at-grade patio with an elevated first-floor deck facing on the Orient Canal, which deck would have the dimensions of 10 feet deep projected from the house by 22 feet wide, with inset steps to go down to grade, about 5 steps, about 3.5 feet. The second floor deck shown on the architectural plan by J.N. Jr. has been eliminated and is not the subject of this application, subject to submittal of revised plans, revised architectural plans. So it's only the first floor deck. The proposed deck will be totally open with no roof proposed. It will extend to the angled section of the bulkhead, as shown in the Ponzio plan, and would be inches below the first floor of the house. The area upon which the deck would be built presently has an at-grade patio and a small patch of landscape area. Variance is required. Number 1, elevation above sea level of the proposed rear canal front deck. 9 feet at 1929 datum is the maximum permitted. The proposed is elevation 10.46, same datum. So the deck is proposed to be 1.5 feet higher off the ground than the ordinance permits. Second, landscape area, 35% is required. Currently, the property has 29.4% and will be reduced to 28.3% due to the loss of a small patch of landscape area under what will be the new deck, if approved. Comments? When decks are to be built higher off the ground than permitted, the board members should consider during their site visits whether or not the higher elevation, not the location, which is legal, but the elevation, whether that inhibits views to any neighbor's house and/or creates issues of noise, privacy, or light impact on any neighbors. The large evergreen trees on one side may be considered, but they are mature trees and may not last forever. This is a kind of case that lends itself to the considered opinion of the immediate neighbors, and if they are present, their views will be instructive as to the above stated criteria, if they wish to provide those views. The fact that the proposed porch will be unroofed is relevant. There should also be a discussion of awnings if proposed. If approved, satisfaction of any comments by the city engineer should become a condition requiring 8 sets of revised plans. And the city engineer's letter is attached, in which I noted there were no significant material comments, but in any case. Also, 8 sets of the architectural plan should be resubmitted, clearly showing removal of the originally proposed second floor deck and no roof on the proposed porch. The plan must be scaled and presented at full scale, not reduced as in the application package. And finally, livability for the applicant family and aesthetics are valid considerations.
Thank you, Mr. Rubin. Mr. Patterson, members of the board, my name is Chris Valence, and I represent Robert and Deborah Stern, who are here this evening with us concerning the house they recently purchased at 410 North Nassau Avenue, Block 515, Lot 16. It's in the S40 zoning district. The application before you this evening really involves the renovation of the existing, it's a very nice shingle-style house seashore style. It's a renovation of that house, and the only variance the Stearns seek with this application is for the elevation of a relatively modest deck in the rear yard. It's about 10 feet deep by 22 feet wide, of 1 floor, and extends to the bulkhead. The bulkhead at this location, I think, is about 10.5, I'm sorry, the first floor of the house. I'll be at to work tonight. Higher than it's allowed. We have seen a lot of these applications coming before the board. One of the reasons is that obviously houses are being raised and bulkheads aren't required to be as high as the house anymore. Some of the concerns raised with respect to these applications is that when you have the lower deck, it does become a tripping hazard sometimes coming out. In this instance, the Stearns are really only proposing a small deck in a small portion of to the first floor elevation, the elevation of the deck and its location. Yeah, I'm sorry. Thanks, John.
It is intended to match the level of the existing first floor deck that comes out of the rear of the home. And the idea is just to give a little bit of additional space at relatively close to the finished floor of the existing house. As Mr. Rubin's report points out, this deck is slightly below the finished floor. The reason that there's a variance necessary is not for setback in the side yard or anything like that. It's just it's the fact that that deck itself, as proposed, is at approximately elevation 10.5, whereas you are aware, when you approach the bulkhead in the rear yard, your maximum deck elevation is permitted to be 9 per your current ordinance. This is based on the 29 vertical datum that everybody's so familiar with now. So the variance is basically just to take the deck up 18 inches from where your ordinance currently permits.
Do you see the deck as proposed, let the bulkhead line the way the house is lined up?
No, we really don't, and we think it's a modest request. You have a little bit of a unique shape with the bulkhead angling there, especially being a lagoon lot, and it's only 18 inches. A deck that's 4 feet higher than the neighbor, that's an issue, but this is an 18-inch deviation from the ordinance, so we really didn't see a negative impact.
Hey, John, can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
Would the deck be about the same elevation as Brenda's house next door, or a little lower?
Let me get you the... As to which deck were you talking about there?
412.
Yeah, 412.
412.
No, I know which deck is Ms. Talby's. Are you talking about...
The one right next, right... Yep.
What I'm saying is, are you talking about the upper or the lower deck there?
The lower deck.
I'm sorry?
The upper deck would be, Commissioner Talbot's upper deck would be adjacent to the stern deck, so it would appear, I don't know if it's higher or lower, it's difficult to tell from
You're talking about the upper deck of Mrs. Talby's house or the lower deck?
Lower deck.
This would be a little bit higher than the lower deck.
About, what, 3 inches?
I don't know exactly, Jim. I don't want to put a number on the record because I don't know exactly.
They have no problem with the application, and they said to tell the board that they wouldn't,
We'll take your word back, you're saying.
Clem?
New deck will be at the same level as the existing adjacent deck?
This is intended to be one continuous deck, that's correct.
But are you raising the existing deck?
The lower deck?
No, the top one, where it comes out of the house.
That's not proposed to be accomplished.
So you're bringing the other up to that level?
Yes, proposing to go this piece to match that level.
That's your question, right? Yeah. Thank you. Any other questions from the board? Does anyone here from the audience like to participate, the public? Public portion is closed. Is there any conditions?
Yes. Yes. Revised plans satisfying the city engineer for him to sign off. Revised plans, architectural plans, 2-scale, showing removal of the second floor deck. That was on there. And also showing that there's no roof.
On the deck?
On the deck. And we didn't talk about, Chris.
No, there's no awning proposed.
Okay. Notate that on.
You can put in the, if it makes everybody know, you can note, conditionally approve no fixed awning, and sometime in the future, there's
Okay.
nothing that.
Okay.
It's on some relic, practical basis, you can certainly put no fixed awning.
Okay.
With those conditions, do I hear a motion? Mike, motion, second?
I'll second.
I got it this time. Seeing that the deck is only going up 18 inches and I didn't see any impact directly with the neighbors and no neighbors came up to oppose it, I approve the application.
When you stand back there on the existing deck, look up and down the lagoon. Decks higher than 9 feet are very common. I see no problem with this one. I vote yes.
Jim Galantino.
I approve the application as brought forth by Mr. Bounce.
Margaret Gubernalty.
I approve the application for the same reasons as the other board members previously stated.
I take it as a modest improvement, and I think it'll be just fine, no impact with the neighbors. I approve.
Craig Palmisano.
Looks like a nice addition to the house. It looks like they're adding a kitchen area, a dining area, and a small deck. No negative impacts to the neighbors. I approve the addition.
I approve the application, and the deck seems to fit in with the neighbors.
I also vote in favor of the application. While making a bigger impact to the home, it appears to make no negative impact to the neighbors.
Considering the ungodly high deck to the bay side of them, I think this will give them a clearer view, and I approve the application.
Thank you very much, and I want to say thank you to Mr. Goldstein and his client for allowing us to bump up ahead of that. Thank you.
Next case is Robert D.O. Marquez, 17, pardon me for pronunciation, I don't know if that's how you say it, 17 South Washington Avenue to Marquez, to be known as 16 South Decatur, Block 126, Lot 109.01, and 18 South Decatur Avenue, Block 126, Lot 99, in the multifamily district, Lot 109.01, to grant a C variance for lot width, combined side setbacks, and possibly others. Lot 99, to grant a C variance for lot width, combined setbacks, and possibly others. Taxes are current, and proof of advertising and notifying is satisfied. Mr. Rubin? Mrs. Margaret Gubernaldi has recused herself because her office is within 200 feet.
Roger Rubin? I do. This same applicant appeared before the board on September 26, 2013, to subdivide Lot 109, which ran from Washington to Decatur, and to request a duplex on the Washington Avenue lot after tearing down the triplex on that lot site, and a single-family house on the Decatur Avenue lot, which is called 109B. After the hearing, according to this application, Mr. Marquez was approached to buy the adjoining lot on Decatur, Lot 99, which is 18 South. and which currently has on it a single-family house. So now it is requested herein that the approved structure on Lot 109B, which was single-family, become a duplex rather than single-family, and a new single-family structure would replace the home on Lot 99. It is my opinion that the previously approved subdivision remains a valid and complete action, and any and all steps to record and perfect it may be proceeded with. Also valid is the duplex previously approved on Washington Avenue, Lot 109A. The subject of this application is, can a duplex be built on 109B given there are variances? And can a new single-family be built on Lot 99, replacing the existing single-family presently there, which would be demolished, given there are also variances? Variances for the proposed duplex on Lot 109B. This is the duplex behind the duplex on Washington Avenue. The variances are lot width, 40 feet is required. It is 35 feet as existing. Consider that total lot area is 3,500 square feet compared to 3,200 square feet required. Combined side setbacks, 37% of lot width, 12.95 feet is required versus 10.34 feet as shown. Each of the single side setbacks slightly exceeds the requirement of 5 at 5.17. Total lot landscaping at 36.6% slightly exceeds the required. Rear setback, 15 feet is shown versus 20 required. This somewhat delimits the residents' ability to utilize the backyard for social and recreational activities. 4, principal building coverage, 35.6% is permitted versus 50.5% in the Weiss and Ponzio plans. This is a significant overage in building coverage, with there being no specific reasons given in the application to support it, and this for a structure the full 30 feet over the required elevation of 12 and 37 feet above the ground. The units are each 1,800 plus square feet. This may be considered a problem in the neighborhood in terms of sheer building mass, as well as a problem of justification wherein numerous other duplexes have been built in recent years without so large a coverage variance, including the viability of the zoning code. Each unit has 3 bedrooms plus den, and the board should inquire as to whether the program can be modified. I would like to add to this comment that in a conversation earlier today with the applicant's professionals, it was pointed out to me, something I had overlooked, that if the 2 lots were combined, they could legally build a triplex, which would be the same 3 units, at a coverage which would be approximately the average coverage of the proposed duplex and the proposed single-family. They will enlarge upon that in their presentation. But I think that requires absolute consideration by the board. And finally, on the duplex, front landscape, 65% required, 55.2 design. Variances for the proposed single-family house on Lot 99, lot width. Again, the single-family lot is oversized. Only 2,500 square feet is required versus 3,500 square feet as existing. It's a very large single-family lot. 2 combined side setbacks, 12.95 feet required versus 10.16. Compensation includes 39% total lot landscaping, significantly more than 35% required. Also, front landscaping slightly exceeds the 65% needed. Also, the rear yard greatly exceeds the required 20 feet at 38.63 feet, allowing for a rear yard patio and a good-sized swimming pool. Additional comments. Building coverage for the single-family house is only 34.1%, although 37% is allowed. This undercoverage of about 101.5 square feet, however, does not fully compensate for the additional square footage of the duplex lot. Floodproofing and adequate parking and aesthetics are, of course, positive attributes of both proposed structures. If approved, a condition precedent to building permits should be perfection of the subdivision previously approved within legal time parameters.
Mr. Rubin, I have a question.
Yeah.
If they combined the lots and put a triplex on there that was the same coverage that these two properties, that wouldn't be a variance?
I believe, John Barnhart is going to testify on that. I believe it's with 1%.
It's actually a little better now.
Okay, yeah, I think that's going to be the answer.
Rubin, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Eric Goldstein on behalf of the applicant. Just as an initial matter, Mr. Marquez is here. It's very important for him to explain to you and for me to explain to you, this additional lot purchase was not originally anticipated when we came before the board in September. Immediately following the granting of the variances and the application for the overall project, the neighbor next door knew about it, contacted Mr. Marquez's realtor, who then contacted me. So this was not something, as an overall contemplation, we've been thinking about doing, and then coming in piecemeal, because I think that would be disingenuous. And Mr. Marquez can testify as to when the contract was signed to buy this property was October 12th. We were here on September 26th, and he does want to state that the single-family house, if approved, will be his residence, and that, as I said before, it's not something we've been planning to do to try to pull a fast one on the board in putting together this property. So he's here to tell. He's leaving for Brazil at 9 o'clock in the morning, but thought it was important enough to come and be here to show face and show who he is, and he's going to be a member of the community once this is eventually built. In any event, John Barnhart is here to explain the situation on the variances and how we're hoping to reline up the properties if the board grants this. Most important to note, at least initially, is when we were here in September, we did obtain approval to build the single-family house exactly as it's being proposed on the new lot. So the single... better than me, John.
John Barnhart. I do.
How the single had been...
Eric, he was standing right there when you said that stuff.
It's very cold outside, so...
Okay. I think everybody was here for the first application, but I'll give you 10 seconds on what was approved, and then we'll go into why we're here tonight. If you recall, we came before the board with an application for a lot that went street to street from Washington to Decatur Avenue. The lot is 211 feet deep, and it's 35 feet wide. We requested a subdivision of that lot into 2 lots, and then to construct a duplex facing Washington Avenue and a single-family home facing Decatur Avenue. That application was approved as submitted, and as you heard from Mr. Goldstein, after that, our client was approached by the neighbor saying, hey, you want to buy my lot? So here we are tonight, adding a lot to the south on Decatur Avenue to the application. What Mr. Marquez has decided to do is take the approval of the single-family lot in its exact condition, all the setbacks, all the coverages, everything that was approved in that first application right here on this property, and slide it to the adjacent property. Everything that you approved in the first application with regard to that single-family home holds true with this application. There are no changes to that, other than the fact that it was on a 35 by 100 foot lot here. It's now on a 35 by 100 foot lot there. Everything remains the same. You see in Mr. Rubin's report the variances that are necessary for this evening, but all the justifications that we gave the first time still hold true, but I will quickly go through them. So really the crux of the application is the addition of a duplex on Decatur Avenue. When Mr. Marquez came to us, when he put this property under agreement, he said he'd like to build 3 units on the Decatur piece. So we took a look at it. You are in a multi-family, you're in the MF zone. The property, when you look at the 2 parcels together, The property's 70 feet wide, it's 100 feet deep, so we're at a 7,000 square foot lot. The multifamily zoning permits one unit for every 2,200 square feet. So the 3 units at 6,600 square feet are well in conformity with regard to density for those 2 parcels that sit on Decatur Avenue. So the 3 units do meet the intent purpose of your zoning plan with regard to density on this parcel. But what Mr. Marquez wanted to do, and what we have before you this evening, is he wanted to develop a site that's a little bit different than just a 3-unit multifamily style of building. He wanted to maintain the single family and then add a duplex to Decatur Avenue, because there are duplexes are prevalent along there, but as you know, Mr. Marquez would like a single here for his own residence. So we took a look at that, and what that does is it creates a number of variances because of the unit types. Because we're proposing to allow the property line to remain as 2 35-foot wide lots, because one structure is a duplex and one is a single family, your MF zoning kicks you into other areas of your zoning requirements. And what I mean by that is, even though you're in a multifamily zone, if you build a single family, you are subject to the S25 zoning district requirements. If you're building a duplex, you're subject to the 2-family requirements. So the requirements for coverage and setback and things actually change depending on your building type. The reason all of that is important is because we believe that the project that's proposed is actually creates some benefits to the community and to this block than would the application if we came in with a triplex that actually would meet all the requirements of the MF zoning district. I'll explain that. We're here this evening for some variances, and you saw from Mr. Rubin's report, really the biggest variance, the biggest issue is the building coverage, the principal building coverage. But we're here for variances for this structure, for the duplex structure, for lot width, because we have an existing 35-foot wide lot that we're proposing to maintain that lot width. We're here for combined side yard setback, where as you're aware, we have to have a minimum of 37% of lot width with a minimum of 5 feet on one side. We're proposing to meet the minimum for the duplex on both sides, but we are shy by about about 2.5 feet in total combined side yard setback. And we are asking for a building coverage variance where 35.6% would be permitted on that lot, and 50.5% is what is proposed when we leave that as an individual lot. And then lastly, on the duplex, we're asking for front landscape where 65 is required and 55.2 is proposed. Now, those numbers sound high, but when you compare this project to the triplex that the multifamily zone permits, this site is permitted 45% maximum or principal building coverage in the MF zoning district. That's what the site is permitted to have. If you take these two buildings, you add up their building areas, and you divide it by the lot area, it actually comes to a building coverage in the aggregate on these two properties of 42.3%. So although we are asking for a deviation of 50.5%, where only 35 and change is permitted, a triplex building is actually permitted to be bigger than what we propose on this site. Mr. Marquez chose not to go in that direction because he didn't think it was right for the neighborhood, it wasn't right for him personally. But when we look at this, we say you're developing a site that has slightly lower building coverage. I did actually check the numbers on landscape coverage. This development in the aggregate is about 2.5% above the minimum landscape coverage of 35%. This project is 37.5%. And when you look at, even though again we're asking for a deviation to side yard setbacks, when you look at what a triplex on this site would give you in open light corridors, you have a minimum requirement, as I'm sure you're aware, in the multifamily district of 8 feet. You'd have 16 feet of side yard open corridors as a triplex. In this case, we have 5, 10, 15, 20 feet of open side yard as you look down these properties. So we truly believe that this is a case where this is why you grant variances, because we're requesting deviations that create a nicer project than what your ordinance would actually permit if we build a multifamily building on this site. Mr. Marquez thinks it fits in nicer with the surroundings. There's a number of duplexes on this property. There are some quads actually immediately to the north of the site, but then you get to a smaller new duplex, then you get to another single family and another duplex, all newer in construction, which is why he has chosen to flip this and bring his single family further to the south, because he thinks it's more appropriate, as do I, to the pattern of development on the block. But it was an interesting case. The more we looked at it, the more we studied it in really preparing for this evening and looking at what the zoning permits versus what is proposed, it really is a case of there's betterments. We believe this is a better project than what the ordinance would actually permit on this site. Now, go ahead.
I'm sorry, there's a quad, two quads north of this.
Correct.
So you would transition from two quads to a duplex to a single.
That's correct.
Where you would otherwise go two quads to a triplex to a single.
Well, to a duplex. This is a duplex here, yeah. So
What's behind the single?
behind this single here, that is a parking lot. Right, that's hold on one second. That's a parking lot for the old Maloney site.
Okay.
That's the single that we're tearing down, so it backs up to the parking lot of the old Maloney site. So the only deviation that I need to discuss, I think, in detail, that isn't a direct result of the different building type is the rear yard setback. We are proposing 15 feet on the duplex structure as opposed to the 20 feet required. The reason for that is, essentially to create a nicer unit. Could the buildings be shorter? Of course the buildings could be shorter. We couldn't stand here and say they couldn't. But what we looked at is really, it creates a nicer unit, and really what is the negative impact to it? If you take the surrounding land uses, well, Mr. Marquez proposes to live next door to it. He obviously doesn't have a problem with it. He's designed it that way with his architect. We have control over the building behind us, which has a almost 22-foot rear yard setback, so there will be 35 or 37 feet between them if approved. And they're adjacent. The catty corner site is a parking facility, and immediately adjacent in the rear yard, if you're concerned about blockage of rear yard light, is another parking facility for the quadruplex. So the deviation of that rear yard that I'm talking about, it occurs right here. It backs up to that parking lot, it's catty corner to that parking lot, and the other two buildings that are affected by it are part of Mr. Marquez's property. So it's a case of, could we reduce it? Certainly we could, but there's no negative to it, and it provides a nicer unit. And when again, I go back to you look at the project, although the deviations are required because we propose to keep these at two individual lots, we meet the mass issues. In the aggregate, we meet the coverage. In the aggregate, we meet the coverage for building and for landscape. So this is a project where you have to look at the package as a whole. It's a project that we think works well with the surrounding land uses. It's a project that doesn't create negative impacts, and we think it's a project that is approvable.
And the two duplexes that are back-to-back, they're symmetrical, so they're going to line up better than if you had something with the duplex on the property behind it, correct?
That's correct. They are very similar. Obviously, this one's slightly shorter, but they're very similar.
Peter's here to testify, if need be, that they're identical.
That's all I have.
I want to have reversed.
I'm just letting wait.
You know what, I have a question. And this is brought up by our board secretary, actually. The applications for two lots, but it's actually two separate lots. We're not asking for any subdivision, obviously, right? So the application's really for two separate lots. Correct?
Yes.
Okay. So even though it's in one application here, really, we're dealing with two separate lots. And
correct. We're addressing
just for purposes of the vote and everything, I'm going to separate that out. That's why.
Yes.
Okay.
And the advertisement was for two lots. We had two separate tax lists.
Okay, that's my next question.
Correct.
All right, thank you.
Yes. Now, just be aware, there was an enormous amount of overlap, as you're, I'm sure, aware, that this and that are pretty much all the same. People notice we're about 20 people separate on the one tax list that went a little further out, because this portion affects people further towards Longport. So, yeah, that was all included in our package.
Okay.
Yeah. Mr. Marquez is here if you have any questions. He has been...
Board have any questions? Clem?
Going back to, I can't find it in...
Just points.
Somewhere in Roger's report, I can't find it at the moment. Oh, here it is. The significant overage in building coverage, there being no specific reasons given to support it. I've heard a lot of verbiage, but I still haven't heard any specific reasons to support it.
Well, my testimony was that this project has two smaller buildings meets the coverage that is permitted in the multifamily zone. So basically what you have is you have a huge benefit by having a project that creates two smaller buildings as compared to one large building that would be compliant to your coverage. The reason that the coverage appears to be a large overage is because we're keeping these lots as two separate lots. If we take the subdivision line out, in fact, frankly, if buildings don't have to be combined, if we took the interior lot line out and just built these buildings as they're shown on this plan, we would not need a coverage variance. That's true. Your ordinance does not require a triplex to be within one building. We've actually done projects that way.
That's correct. That is correct. You keep comparing it to a triplex, but you're not proposing a triplex, so I don't think
But my point is
the comparison's of any consequence.
But my point is, essentially, we are. Again, if it's but for an imaginary line, we meet the intent purpose of how much building mass this ordinance intended for this lot. It's because we're proposing to keep them as two different forms of ownership that creates the variances. It's not the structures themselves that create the variance.
I have a question. You're done, Clem?
Yeah, go ahead.
The photos you supplied with the packet, this is for 16 or 18?
The 18 South, that's the single that's currently in existence that will be replaced by the single.
That home will be demoed?
Correct.
And that home, as it stands right now, barely had maybe 2 parking spots?
Correct.
And the proposed is now going to be 6 parking spots?
For the single,
Yeah.
the single family will have 4 spots.
So we reduced the parking on the street by 2?
That is correct.
That's all I have.
Also, John, is the existing single, I'm sorry.
I had a question, because one of the things that John brought up is that he could make it a conforming building if they shrank the building up. Now, to do that, you would go into the den slash, let me call it almost a 4th bedroom, because you have a full bath servicing that, so it could technically be a 4th bedroom. So, another question that brings it up, for Roger, do we have enough parking, or is that technicality that they called it a den doesn't come into play?
We actually have 3 spaces for each of the units here.
So three.
If you want to consider that a bedroom, if we have to conform parking.
Correct. And John, the existing single-family house that would be demolished, is it below or at flood elevation?
It's got to be below.
I'm pretty.
It's through the floor, but you have a low street in that house.
So that's an advantage.
Part of it's a slab, I think. Yeah.
Anything else from the board? Is anyone here from the public that would like to comment? Are you guys finished?
Unless you want to speak to Mr. Weiss or Mr. Marquez, we are finished.
No. Is anyone here from the public that would like to speak? Seeing no one, I close the public portion. Is there any more comments from the board?
Can I make a motion? Is there any conditions?
Is there conditions? Oh, yes. Jan gets to speak.
I get to speak tonight, finally. I was trying not to, but I think we're going to take 2 votes. One is going to be for the proposed duplex on Lot 109B. Roger's report sets out the variances that are required, which are width, combined setbacks, rear yard setback, principal building coverage, and front landscape. So we'll take one vote on that, if I may, Madam Secretary. And then on Lot 99, which is a single-family home, proposed single-family home, which there's, as they testified, they're sliding the one approval from the prior subdivision just to the adjacent lot next to it.
And they're perfecting the subdivision.
And one of the conditions is you have to perfect the subdivision, correct? You understand that?
We were waiting, just by way of background, we were waiting until tonight to do so, and now we're going to full steam ahead, but thank you, yeah.
Okay.
Accept.
And those variances are for lot width and combined setbacks. So if we could take a vote on...
I have a question. Rich, can I ask a question? On the subdivision, we don't issue any permits till that's officially done?
That's what he said.
Exactly. You have to perfect that first,
I
because
think
there
there's
was...
a demo permit, I just want to say that, I think there's a demo permit which doesn't affect the subdivision for the existing triplex on the Washington side.
Is that,
Right.
is that okay? Issue demo permit prior?
Demo permits, always.
Okay.
Yeah, issue, yes.
All right, so we need a motion first on the duplex lot 109B.
I'll make that motion.
Second?
Dave?
I'll second it.
Thanks, Dave.
Okay, this is, I'm voting on what again? I'm sorry. It's the duplex lot. Okay, just in the location it is, it fits there. The variances is not going to be too much of an impact. If it was anywhere else, I would say something about the size, and it would be able to fit in the coverage. So just because of the location, I'm going to vote in favor.
I just think they're asking for too much. So many variances, and some of them are extreme, particularly the building coverage. And I'm not satisfied that the testimony given justifies it. I vote no.
Jim Galantino?
Every time you say that, you wake me up. This is lot 109A, the duplex lot, for the variance as set forth. I approve them since I think what we're doing. I'm sorry. Plan says A.
A is the lot of Washington Avenue.
Okay.
B is the lot of Decatur.
B, 109B. I approve the application.
I mean, we approved the one, it's identical to it, on the same size lot and with everything.
This is a different one, Mike.
No, I understand.
Washington?
Right.
We approved Washington.
Right.
Now we're approving
Yes.
Decatur. It's an identical lot, identical area. I approved it for no other reason why we shouldn't. So I approved.
I agree with Mike. I approve it also. For Mike's sentiments, exactly. They're identical duplexes. I approve it.
Get them on.
I approve based on the location.
After hearing all the testimony, I am going to vote in favor of the application. To be quite honest, it is a little reluctant. I believe the numbers argument is an eloquent argument, but you aren't proposing a triplex in this situation. However, given no opposition from the neighbors, I'm going to vote in favor of the application.
I'm also going to vote in the negative with Clem. It's a different neighborhood on Decatur than it is on Washington, and I think it's too big. I vote no.
Do we need a motion on that first?
Oh, okay.
I'll make a motion on lot 99.
There's any conditions?
Is that the right number?
No conditions.
Need a second.
I'll second it.
Dave?
Again, I think it could have been scaled down just a little bit, but it's not that overbearing, so I'll vote in favor of the application.
Yeah, I think the requests on this application for the single-family home are reasonable. I vote yes.
Jim Galantino?
Let me follow this. This was the side yard setback right on the lot 99 that needed a variance. And lot width. On those two conditions, I vote yes.
Commissioner Baldy?
We okayed the duplex, which in my opinion was a bigger ask. This application, in my opinion, is de minimis, and I vote yes.
I think we'd be here a lot longer tonight if they came back in with another duplex to go on that lot. So with a single family going in there, I'm real happy with that, and I vote yes.
Craig Thomas?
I approve the single-family home on Decatur Avenue.
Family. I approve the single family.
I vote in favor of the application. I believe it'll provide balance given the neighboring property.
I also vote in favor with a lot size that's smaller than what's required is the only reason they require these variances, and there's no way to get land next to it. So I approve of this application.
Tell your members to stay.
Application
Yes, and
for-
please, go ahead.
Application for lot 99 passes, 9-0.
All right, don't anybody go anywhere. You guys can go somewhere.
Now we got to decide.
No.
2 minutes, 2 minutes.
Is there any public
No,
portion?
2 minutes. Yeah, you're done. Send her home.
Jackie,
work.
have a nice holiday.
He wants to talk to you guys.
Huh?
He's leaving for Brazil at 9 o'clock in the morning. He said, I want to be there.
And you allow the other guys? Yes,
You saw that, right?
Yes,
Okay,
but I have no memory, so.
well, I have some other business first.
okay.
I think this is Bill Gonshall's last meeting, is that correct?
My last meeting.
Bill is buying drinks at the, where are we going?
Yes, yes.
What's the name of the place? Boca. Bill's buying drinks at Boca after this in celebration of moving to South Carolina. Despina cannot have a drink.
I can drive you home.
Okay. Now you have some business?
Okay. Everyone that I know of that did not have any study done for the planning board was given an application on their desk for Rutgers. They're offering the class March 21st. March 21st. The city will pay for it, but I must receive all your paperwork back as soon as possible.
Where at?
It's out in Mays Landing, so it is a convenient location.
Who's going?
Which one of these
Huh?
programs?
They changed the
Then you are
locations.
not, then you do not have to do it. But the new members, Craig Palmisano, Commissioner Tawby, Despina, Remy, and David, and myself, we all have to take this class. I don't know. It's a 3-day course? Pardon? 3 days? No, it's a one-day course. I don't have it in front of me. On March 21st, I believe it's from 9 till 4.
Now you take a test and then
Right, there is a test given that you're certified when you're finished.
Land use for board members.
Yes, that's
Fail the
it.
test, you get kicked out.
No, you take the test again.
I would go.
And
Yeah, it was
ACCC.
interesting.
Is that it?
Yes.
Okay, I have just...
There is one
Oh, I'm
other
sorry.
thing. The reorganization meeting will be on January 9th. Or, no, it's the 9th, isn't it?
Isn't it the 9th?
Yeah, it's Thursday, the 9th.
Okay.
Second Thursday.
The second Thursday, the 9th of January, is the reorg meeting. And we will also have a few cases heard that night because there are a number of cases lining up for January.
Then tell them the 30th.
The next meeting will be the 30th,
So you have 2 meetings in January.
so there will be 2.
The 9th is a Thursday.
Correct.
God is punishing us.
Yeah, right.
And I am finished.
And I think the board will notice that the giggling that used to be over there is now moved over to there.
So what does that say?
Do I hear a motion to adjourn the meeting? Second.